How you doing out there? Olivia Krem here, your Director of Fitness, and thank you for joining me for today's Mastering Form workout. In the Mastering Form workout, we're going to go through some resistance bands, but not just doing resistance bands by themselves, but how to anchor them down and get in some really great exercises. So before we jump into that, if this is your first time joining me for a Mastering Form workout, just always remember to check with your physician first. Just make sure it's A-OK before you begin any new type of activity. Have your water with you. Even though this is more of a tutorial-based workout, you still want to make sure that you're hydrated and you have some water with you when you need it. As always, listen to your body, okay? I'm going to be taking you through step-by-step sort of the how, the why of specific moves and exercises. But if you need to take breaks, if you need to rest, absolutely always listen to your body. So let's jump on in. Resistance bands is absolutely one of my favorite pieces of exercise equipment to work with. Number one, because they're so versatile. There's so many different exercises that you can do, and they travel excellent, okay? So you can take them with you everywhere. Put them in your gym bag, take them with you in your carry-on when you're traveling, so they're excellent. So I've done several different workouts with the resistance bands, but I've never shown you any that have to do with anchoring them down, so that way you can get some more versatility in your workout. So that's what we're gonna do today. Normally, when you buy resistance bands, and they come in many different colors, shapes, and some with nylon bands around them, some without. So, you know, it just depends on what you're looking to do. But most often when you purchase resistance bands, they're going to have some type of handle attached, and they're normally going to have an anchor point. And the anchor points are meant to allow you to do certain exercises to simulate some of the machines that you would see in a gym, but to anchor them down with typically something like a door jamb or door frame. So that's what I want to show you today, because there are a lot of fun exercises that you can do to really kind of mimic the same moves that you'll see in the gym when you anchor it down or anchor your resistance bands to a wall or to a door hinge. So we're going to do that. All right, so I'm going to take... Now, I actually don't need to use the anchor, and the anchors, they just depending on what kind of resistance band you purchase, they look, you know, a little bit different, but primarily they all have some type of way that you would put this into a door frame. Depending on what move you decide to do determines where you want to position the anchor. Normally, what you would do is this part would go into a door frame. You do want to pick a door that you're sure is not going to open on you. That is super important. So you want to make sure that that door is very solid and no one's going to come in on the other side, or if you're using it as an anchor, that it's not going to pull away from you. So very important to make sure you do that. But once you've decided where your anchor is going to be based on the exercise you're going to do, you would just slide the resistance band through this way, and then you would anchor it to where you want to in the door frame, depending on what exercise that you want to do. Okay, so very easy from an assembly standpoint. It takes seconds to do. Okay, so lots of versatility, but seconds to set up. So that's one of the things I love about it. Now, I actually don't need to use this anchor, because I'm going to be anchoring the resistance bands to an actual machine. So that's something else you can do. If you find that you have something heavy, you can always tie the resistance band around it, or sometimes if you're in a gym setting, they'll have different pieces of equipment that you can anchor resistance bands to. So that's what I'm going to use today. Now, the first exercise I want to show you some exercises that you can do for different muscle groups. So we're going to do some chest. I'm going to show you an exercise for your chest, your back, front of the arms, back of the arms, and for the legs. So that way you can kind of have a really good, well-rounded routine if you wanted to use the anchored resistance bands today. So we're going to start out with the chest press. And whenever I'm doing something primarily with chest, I'm going to be facing away from the anchor point. And depending on what you're doing determines where the anchor is. So since I'm doing chest, I want to make sure the anchor point isn't too high. I want it to be really sort of level with the upper part of my chest, sort of upper to the middle part of my chest. If it's not in the right position, it definitely affects what area of the body I want to work. Now, it doesn't mean that there aren't exercises that you can't do with chest, where the anchor's high or low. There's absolutely things you can do, but I'm just going to focus on a basic chest press. So I want this anchor to be in the sort of lower part of my shoulder blades, in that area there. So now I'm going to have my hands like this. I'm going to start with a 90-degree angle apart, okay, just like so. And I want to kind of step away. I like to give myself some distance away from the anchor point. So the more distance you give yourself, the harder it is. Also, obviously, depending on the level of intensity of your band. So if this is your first time using resistance bands, using an anchor point, start with something lighter. You can always progress. So when I do my chest press, I'm going to start again, like I said, from stepping away or my back away from the anchor point. I'm going to have a 90-degree angle here. And what I want to do is I'm going to just press, and I like to kind of have a straddle effect with regards to my legs. You don't have to do that. I like that because it helps me stay more grounded to the floor, and it helps with my balance, and I feel much more positioned there, but you don't have to do that. It also helps me keep my chest elevated to where my chest isn't like this when I'm doing the exercise. Now, I also like the bands underneath my arm. Some prefer over the arm, like so. It really is up to you. I really don't like to feel the band on the top of the arm, so I'm more under. Again, it's not really a right or wrong, it's more of a preference. So play with what feels good for you. Also, one of the great things, a little tip is that about the bands that have the sort of like nylon webbing or the cover, is that you're not gonna get that sort of rubber feel up against the body. So one thing I like about these specific ones here. So I got my angle, my arms are about level with my chest muscles here, so very important. I want to be just like this, not low, but more across that chest line. And I'm going to then press, just like so. And I want to have tension, okay? So right now I don't have as much tension because I want you to see sort of the full execution of the exercise. And as I press, what I'm doing is I'm squeezing my arms together, so it looks just like this. I'm pressing and squeezing my arms together, pressing, squeezing my arms together, pressing, squeezing my arms together. One of the great things I love, or several of the great things I love about doing a chest press, is that you really work the back of the arms as well as the chest muscles, which are good for just your overall upper body strength. So I like doing that exercise for my chest. So we press, chest is up, and I press, squeezing the chest together. What I want to avoid trying to do is when I'm pressing is to do this. I don't want my shoulders to be out in front. I don't want them taking over, because if I do that, then what happens is at this point I get way more in my shoulders than I do in my chest. So it's important to make sure that chest is elevated. Okay, so that's a chest press. Definitely one of my favorite things to do. The next thing we're gonna do with the anchored band is we're gonna do what's called a tricep press down. Now with this one, you wanna have the anchor point higher. So I'm just gonna raise, I have the ability to sort of raise my anchor point, but you would wanna, if you're using a door jamb, you just need to take it out and adjust and then make sure the door is secure. So this press down focuses on the back of the arms. Now, you can have your hands, there's different ways to position your hands. You can have your hands overhand or underhand. It really just depends on what part of the back of the arm that you're trying to focus on and where you feel like you're getting the most benefit. There's benefits to both, okay? So there are times when I have my hands palms up, there's times when I have my palms down, just depending on what part of the back of the arm that I really want to focus and hone on. So I'm going to show you one that typically is a little bit easier to do, just depending on the wrist, is more of a overhand grip press down. So I like to have a really good slight bend in my knees, nice good strong posture, and I'm going to lean in just a tiny bit, all right, just a little bit. I don't want to be completely too upright. It's not terrible to do, but I feel like it gives me more of an extension on the back of my arms when I lean in a little bit. My elbows are going to be at the side of my body, so this is like a pivot point. So it's important to make sure that my elbows remain there at all times. And I'm going to press down and come up. Again, depending on the resistance of the band will determine how difficult that is or how far away I am. So if I feel like I want more resistance, I'm going to step further away from my pivot point or my anchor. If I want it to be a little easier, I'll get a little bit closer. And also depending on the height of your door, right? That also is something to take in consideration. So I'm gonna stand with my knees bent, elbows at the pivot point here, and I'm pressing down and up. And I want my hands just to come about halfway. I don't want them coming all the way up. So just about here, halfway. And I'm focusing on squeezing the back of the arms. Working the back of the arms helps with a lot of pulling that you do in your everyday, day-to-day functions. And again, that upper body strength. So press and press. All right, so that is a tricep press down. Again, a really great exercise that you can do with your bands if it's anchored down. Another one we're gonna do is called a standing curl or a standing bicep curl. Now this is again where we need to adjust the anchor point. So I'm gonna bring it all the way down. So you would do the same. You would do the same thing with your door hinges. Just sort of adjust, open the door, and bring it down. So it only takes a few seconds to make these minor adjustments. Now I'm going to do a curl, or I'm going to do a standing curl. This works the front of the arms. A lot of good that pulling moves that you do. I'm going to have an underhand grip like so, and just make sure again my elbows are at the pivot point, so at the side. So I want to try to make sure when I'm curling, I come down, full extension, and then up. And I'm focusing on squeezing the front of the arms. I've got good posture. Always make sure that you've got your good posture. My stomach is nice and tight. I've got some slight bend in my knees, and I'm squeezing the front of my arms. Now, I want to try to avoid doing this, where my elbows are kind of moving all over the place. Again, kind of think of the center point of the body as that pivot point, and I want to kind of keep my elbows in that same spot. So again, if I'm doing a standing curl or a bicep curl, front of the arm curl, you can call it different things, and I'm curling, squeezing the front of the arms, and I'm here. Okay, perfect. Next thing I want to show you for your anchor point is called a standing row. So this is for the back muscles, so sort of right between the shoulder blades there. So I want to make sure that when it comes to where I adjust my pivot point, that I have this sort of in the center of my body. So again, this is also going to depend on height, right? So if you are someone taller and let's say your pivot point is very high, you might want to adjust and do some of these exercises while sitting down, which you absolutely can do, or kneeling on your knees. So also you're going to take into account how tall you are compared to where you're anchoring things down. So this is a standing row. I'm going to work my back muscles. So a really strong back is great for your posture and stability. I want to think that I'm going to start with my hands close together, and I want to really begin to squeeze my shoulder blades together. Feet are about hip width apart, so pretty traditional in my stances that you've seen so far. Hip width apart, slight bend in the knees, have some give, and I'm going to pull. And what I'm doing is squeezing my shoulder blades together, pull, squeeze, shoulder blades together, and I'm sort of visualizing pulling the end to my belly button. That helps to make me really squeeze my shoulder blades. So just a little something to visualize. Am I squeezing the right area? One of the things that you want to try to avoid doing is shrugging the shoulders when you pull. Sometimes when we perform a row, we'll do this. We'll have our neck really tight. You want to relax these muscles here, okay? So just pull, squeeze the shoulder blades together, nice and tight. And I also don't want to over squeeze my grip. If I over squeeze a lot and focusing a lot here, I'm going to feel too much in this part of the arm and the forearms, and they're going to get really, really tight. So the arm should be very relaxed. Squeeze, squeeze, and row. Great. Okay. So the next one we're going to do is called more of an upright row. An upright row is a really great exercise because it works the shoulders. So again, that's that upper body development, really good strength. So we're going to lower the anchor point to the bottom. And I promise with the door, yes, you got to open and close some things, but it's great. It only takes just a couple of seconds, okay? So now with this upright row, I want to stand again, feet about hip width apart, slight bend. And what I want to do is I'm going to pull the band or the handles about up to my chest. And I want to think about my elbows being level with my shoulders. And up and down. Up and down. Doing this upright row allows me to get a lot of emphasis in the front of the shoulder, also in the middle part of the shoulder. And notice that I'm keeping my hands pretty close together. My hands aren't far apart. It's not that that's a bad thing to do. You can definitely make adjustments for that. But I like, for me personally, I like my hands a little closer together. And I'm pulling, and this is an upright row. Squeeze. There's no need to get the elbows any higher than about the shoulders or just a little bit above. And again, make sure you're relaxing your neck. You're not tensing as you're doing that row. All right, perfect. So the last one I'm going to show you is how to do a squat. You can definitely do squats with anchored resistance bands. It's a good way to get in some additional resistance. If you don't have any dumbbells or barbells, or you want to be able to add some resistance other than your body weight. So I'm going to step. Need to adjust my pivot point. Got to do that. My pivot point here, or where my anchor is typically about, again, depending on the height, I like it about belly button in that area, stomach area. I'm going to step back and I'm going to have sort of my hands together. I'm kind of interlacing my hands just so I can keep the band, you know, the handles nice and steady. Feet are a little bit like hip width apart, and just the same traditional methods of a squat, making sure that I go hips first, my back is straight, my stomach is tight. Now the difference is with this is there's something pulling me towards it, right? So I gotta really fight that. So the challenge is that if I'm not fighting this properly, it'll make me it'll pull me down. And I don't wanna do that, not when I'm squatting. So I've gotta make sure that I keep that core really engaged and keep my back nice and tight. And I'm going to sit. And I'm thinking about driving my heels through, and my arms are nice out and straight. So it also helps to gets my shoulders a little tired too. Sitting. I'm not holding my breath, breathing. So that added resistance wants to pull me, so I've got to really fight that, just like so. So you'll doing squats, anchored resistance squats, really give some added resistance to your leg workout, which is something I really like. Okay, so that was just six exercises that you can do while anchoring your resistance bands. There are dozens and dozens that you can do. Okay, so if you have questions about any of the exercises that I just did, or questions about other ideas that you want to do, please email me directly at fitness@livia.com. It's always great to get your questions and answer, be any help that we can be here at the Fitness Squad. So just let us know. We'd be glad to help. Remember to just keep moving and have a great time when you're doing your workouts. We'll see you again soon.